Hello everyone, welcome and welcome back to the channel. My name is Zini and today we're kind of doing something a bit different. As you know, a lot of artists like to participate in this thing called Inktober or Artober, in which they draw a lot of art for each day of the month of October. For me, I personally can't commit that much time to art, so I decided to just do as much art as I can, and this video is about that journey. So the project that I decided to commit to this month was called Pumpkin Blood, and this will be a video about my processing and the art that I did. So if you like this content, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and maybe follow me on Instagram, and maybe join the Discord. We would love to have you there. And without further ado, let's get started. So as kind of like an introduction to this video, you're gonna see clips from my sketchbook and clips from Clip Studio Paint and clips from Abyss Paint X. I did switch between the two based off of how I was feeling and basing it on how lazy I was feeling, I guess. But yeah, you're just gonna see me like switch back and forth, so just heads up on that. So in previous years of like the Artober, Inktober season, I tried my best to do a prompt for each day, but I would always end up quitting. So I think in 2022 I did, it was a prompt for each week instead of each day. And even then I was struggling a bit because it was also midterm season back in high school. And then last year I think I made it to day 27 before I had to stop because my grandma died. So I wasn't really in the mood to finish the Inktober. But I do have a sketchbook tour of that, so if you would like to see that, that's on my channel if you want to watch it. But yeah, for the past 2 years, I think, I've been drawing these characters from my Pumpkin Blood story. It's a story that I develop every year. Since then, I believe that the first instance that I drew these, at least like the Pumpkin King, which is the one that I'm drawing right now, I think I drew him first in my second sketchbook, which is on my YouTube channel, so if you want to go see that sketchbook tour too, it's also on there. And I think that's when I first started developing him, after I finished Inktober for 2022, I think, because that was the first time I ever drew the Pumpkin King Headless Horseman character, like digitally, I think. I'll try to see if I can find what the original Pumpkin King design looked like, because I have made like a few little tweaks to the design compared to previous years, but it's still overall kind of similar looking, I guess. And yeah, so like I said before, because it was midterm season, I'm not drawing every day for this. I decided to just draw as much as I could, which ended up with me drawing like 11 different illustrations digitally, and then a whole bunch of sketches in my sketchbook, which I'll probably show a few of them in this video, but I don't think, I'll just save the rest of them for the sketchbook tour, which hopefully I'll be able to do by the end of this year, but no promises about that. Yeah, I did start early on this project in my sketchbook. I think I was drawing the Pumpkin King back in September. Actually, maybe even August. No, it was September when I first started this sketchbook, because I was really impatient for Halloween and I kind of wanted to get a head start because I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of time this month because of midterms once again. And yeah, I based this one off of a sketch from my sketchbook. I decided that I wanted to experiment a little bit with the brushes that I wanted to use, so this was pretty much my experimental piece. And because it was my experimental piece, this one took the longest out of all of them. I think that this took 2 or 3 hours, but I don't know. Also, there's a little bit of a jump, and I think it's this illustration or maybe one of the other ones, because I had accidentally left OBS on, so one of the videos is like 12 hours long because I left it on while I was asleep. So I've learned my lesson since then, so some of the footage might not show up on here. So you could probably see on the side that I'm experimenting with like different brushes, and I think I use this ink brush and this dry ink brush to do the quote-unquote coloring of this illustration. I definitely wanted to keep with the theme of only using like black for like ink because it's like Inktober and stuff. But it was definitely interesting trying to find a pen. You can see me going wild with them right now. Yeah, I really love the dry texture of this dry ink brush pen. It's like, because it's similar to my brush pen like traditionally, where it's kind of like running out a little bit. So it definitely adds a bit of, I guess, character to the illustration. So all of these illustrations for this month are based off of around like the Pumpkin King and his vampire boyfriend, which still don't have names, so if you would like to help me come up with names, please leave them in the comments. I did come up with a list for the Pumpkin King, but I don't know what I would call the vampire boyfriend at all. But yeah, all of the illustrations surround these two characters and like their lives. It's kind of sweet, but also kind of spooky because, you know, it's spooky season. So yeah, this first illustration, I wanted to include both the Pumpkin King and the vampire boyfriend to like kickstart the storytelling process, I guess. And because I wanted to include both of them, I was forced to consider what the vampire boyfriend actually looked like, because I hadn't really drawn him at all. I've mainly been focusing on the Pumpkin King for the past few years. Like even in the illustration from 2022, I only drew the back of the vampire boyfriend's head. So this definitely forced me to consider what his character design looks like. And I think I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. He's very cute, very cutesy. So this illustration is pretty much depicting the Pumpkin King waiting for, I'm going to refer to these two characters as PK and VB just to like save some time. So PK is waiting for VB to wake up from like pretty much a 50-year nap, I guess. And all of the roses in the coffin are roses that PK brought to VB while he was sleeping, and at this moment he's putting a rose in the coffin too. So I thought it was a really cute idea. Once again, I had sketched it in my sketchbook, so it was a lot easier rather than just coming up with something from scratch. And yeah, this part, I pretty much just used a clipping mask and colored the lines with white to make the lines of the roses kind of stand out more, but it also caused me to have a bit of trouble with the rose that PK is holding because it kind of blended in with the roses already in the coffin. But other than that, I'm really, really happy with how this turned out, especially for like being the longest one that I did. I could definitely see my love and my excitement for spooky season. Of course, I did struggle a little bit with VB's hands, but I think that it doesn't distract from the overall illustration. For the backgrounds of these, I didn't really do very much since I wanted the focus to be on the characters. So I basically just covered the whole background with black and used a little bit of the dry ink brush again and a white color to just paint a glowy kind of effect. And that's pretty much the end of that one. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So this next one was also done in Clip Studio Paint, and it's of the skeleton horse that PK rides as like a headless horseman, because a headless horseman rides on a horse because they're horsemen. And I had actually developed it in my second sketchbook, so once again, go see that if you want to. But I decided to change the design a little bit because I figured that riding a skeleton horse would be very uncomfortable. So I decided to give it more of like a kind of like a spiritual body that PK can sit on and like put the riding gear on. But I figured that when the skeleton horse sleeps, that it will lose the spiritual outline of the body and just return to being like a skeleton horse. So I based this pose off of an illustration on Pinterest, which kind of had like a similar kind of vibe that I wanted. And it also just allowed me to kind of do a study of a horse a little bit. I definitely saved a lot of horse pictures to my Pinterest board, so I could refer to them if I draw this skeleton horse again. And this skeleton horse also needs a name, so if you'd like to name the skeleton horse, please leave a comment down below. Also, a little bit more about this horse. It's really big because PK is really tall. So you'll see later I draw the skeleton horse again about like the size difference that I want to give him. Yeah. Oh, I struggled on this part. Drawing ribs is weird. I definitely need to study more horse anatomy, I guess, in the future if I plan on developing this again in next year, I guess. So for this part, I kind of wanted to make the hair look kind of like flowing ink a little bit, but it wasn't really working out, so I do change it a bit later. And I was using a different brush pen, I think, ink brush pen. I think it's the same brush pen that I used to line in the art. Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening there. I kind of wanted to explore this horse design a bit more outside of Inktober, because I don't think, have I drawn a horse before? I don't know, but I definitely want to try it again and like actually color it and render it to see how it would look like, especially if I might want to do something with this in the future. But yeah, once again, coloring the ribs is weird. There's like, the ribs don't even match up. What was I thinking? But yeah, for the coloring, I tried to make it so that the skeleton actually stands out compared to the spirit skin, I guess you would call it. I think it turned out okay. It's a bit messy, but it's okay. And once again, I changed the hair of the horse, the mane. And I don't use this background. I changed it to just a white background. And that's the end of that one. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So this next one is pretty much my second favorite out of the bunch. I wanted to do another PK and VB combination illustration, and I didn't plan this one at all. It kind of just came to me. I sound so sophisticated. It just came to me. But yeah, it's pretty much just VB holding PK's head, because as his boyfriend, I feel like PK would definitely allow VB to hold his pumpkin head, which, oh, also, sorry for being all over the place. PK's head isn't attached to his body. It kind of just floats. So sometimes PK will just float his head around VB, kind of just like being affectionate, and VB will catch PK's head. So that's pretty much what I wanted to depict in this illustration. And this illustration also gave me the opportunity to explore VB's design a bit more than I did in the first illustration. And oh my gosh, I love PK's expression in this illustration. It's so freaking cute. I'm so proud of myself for doing that. Especially because I feel like his expressiveness is a bit limited because it's a pumpkin head, which is a bit more solid than a human face. So I definitely want to explore what he would look like with other emotions in the future. But yeah, the main focus of this piece is pretty much just VB and trying to figure out what he looks like and his design. I also just wanted to draw like a transition between love hearts to bats because sorry about that, because VB can like summon bats, so that's the connection there. I'm actually really proud of how I kind of quote-unquote rendered VB, like especially the hair. I feel like I'm getting a lot better with drawing hair, and I definitely love VB's hair design. It's kind of like anime-esque, I guess. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how VB turned out. But I do wish that I had experimented a bit more with his clothing because it's a bit simple. But then again, a lot of my characters' clothing is simple, so yeah, I definitely wish I had experimented a bit more. And sorry that the hands look so weird. I'm trying to get better at hands, and I feel like I am getting better at hands, but it's just not at the level that I want right now. Yeah. I pretty much just finished adding a bit more shadow to make things look a bit more three-dimensional. And then I put my logo and all that stuff. And that's pretty much the end of this one. So this next one is another VB sketch, except this time it's VB with the skeleton horse, and I decided to do this one in Abyss Paint X. So it might be a bit short because I only got the time-lapse video from the app itself. I didn't actually record me, like, I don't know how to say it, but yeah. So basically, I took a picture of the sketch in my sketchbook, and then I used extract the line art function in Abyss Paint X, and I adjusted a lot of the lines to make it a bit cleaner in Abyss Paint X using like this this thin ink brush. If I can find the name of the brush, I'll put it up on screen. But yeah, this was like one of the lazy days. So I didn't do anything from scratch, and I basically just used a sketch that I already had. But it still turned out pretty good. This is what I was talking before with the size difference. If I could, I would make the skeleton horse even bigger, but I was afraid that it wouldn't like fit onto like the canvas size. So yeah, this is basically also an opportunity to explore what the skeleton horse looks like a bit more. Excuse me. And I really enjoyed drawing the head because I don't know, it just looks so cute. And I also feel like with VB, he would be like the only one that the skeleton horse allows to touch him, other than PK, because obviously he's a headless horseman. But yeah, there isn't very much to say. It's using the same techniques as before. I believe it's also a dry brush pen, but once again, I'll put it up on screen if I find it. But yeah, this one's pretty short, so sorry about that. So this next one was also based off of a sketch from my sketchbook. It's basically PK on the phone with one of the characters that I came up with in 2022, and this is also using the same technique in Abyss Paint X to render this a bit more by extracting the line art and then using a brush ink pen and the Abyss Paint free brushes to color it. Yeah, so basically this is Pumpkin King on the phone with, I believe I called him Skelly Man in 2022, which is basically one of the characters I came up with back then, along with, I think it was like his foster daughter, Zombini, or something like that. I definitely don't have proper names for them yet, but that's Skelly Man for now. Um, uh, yeah, I didn't change his design very much from 2022. I did a redraw of that illustration in my sketchbook, but you'll have to wait until the sketchbook tour to see it. um, but yeah, I didn't have to do very much for this piece. I think it took about the shortest amount of time out of all of them because it was basically just shading, and then I resized PK's head to be a bit bigger in proportion to his body. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry it's so short. So this next painting, or not painting, this next illustration was also done in Abyss Paint X, but I didn't draw it beforehand. I haven't even sketched it in my sketchbook. I kind of just winged it, and I'm pretty glad that I did because it turned out pretty good. This one's actually not like character based, it's more like a concept illustration. So I'll try to explain it the best that I can. I kind of explained it in one of my earlier videos from October, or maybe it was September, I don't remember, but it was like the graphite drawing of PK, so if you want to watch that video, you should go watch that too. But basically, one of PK's kind of powers is like using jack-o'-lanterns as like voodoo dolls. So the way that it works is that he can carve a face into a pumpkin and pretty much infuse like a soul into it. It's kind of like that pumpkin is now connected to a soul of somebody that he's like thinking about, if that makes sense. So if he blows out the candle that's lit inside of the jack-o'-lantern, the person that's connected to it dies. If that makes sense, I really hope that makes sense. I think I explained it a bit better in my other video. But yeah, that's pretty much where this illustration is based off of. So this is kind of like a trophy kind of display showing like all of the victims from his powers. So I decided to just make a whole field of scarecrows with the pumpkin heads on them. And I also made a little Easter egg of turnip head in the background. But yeah, that's pretty much what this is. That's the end of this part. The next one is even lazier. So this one is still using Abyss Paint X, and it's using a sketch that I drew in my sketchbook. And it's basically kind of just like a cheat day where I got to be a little bit lazy. There's nothing too detailed in this illustration sketch. And it's kind of going into chibi territory, but not quite there. But I just wanted to draw them being cute together. And it's basically like PK giving a little kiss to VB's head. Yeah, there wasn't very much going on in this piece. I still think it turned out pretty cute, and I think you can see like the size difference a bit more in this piece, even though it's kind of like chibi-fied, I guess. You can still see that PK is pretty tall. Like VB is not like short at all. It's just that PK is like really big, a really big person. I do kind of wish that I had drawn PK's head like floating off to the side of VB a little bit to kind of show off that PK's head isn't attached to his body. And I felt like it would have been a bit more natural that way instead of having it kind of look like PK's like bending his neck, even though he doesn't have a neck. But yeah, I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out, even though this was like a lazy day. I think it still turned out kind of cute. So for the next one, we're going back to using Clip Studio Paint. And this one's also kind of a lazy day. Not as lazy as the last one, but still a little bit lazy. It's not too detailed. But this is a PK solo piece that I did. And it's kind of based off of a sketch that I did. I think it was my second sketchbook. Yeah, I think I did a whole video about it. I'll see if I can like put it up on screen or something, or like in the YouTube cards or something. But yeah, it's a solo piece of PK, and I just wanted to draw him that day, I guess. Yeah, that skull is very not exactly right. So yeah, you could see my a little bit of my laziness that day. Yeah, you can even see with my sketch lines that it's even sketchier than usual. Like not taking into consideration of like rendering it too much. Like even the cape is like not as dark as the other versions of PK that I've drawn. But I still think that this illustration turned out pretty good. I think it's still like showing off his like kind of personality, like intimidation a little bit. I still made the same mistake with this cape that I did in that video from like 3 years ago, or maybe it was a year ago. I don't know. But yeah, this was a pretty quick one. I think I did this in like 30 minutes. I think that's what I said on Instagram. Yeah, I'm still pretty happy with how this turned out. So this next one is actually my favorite piece out of the whole bunch. And I actually didn't realize that it was a redraw of a piece that I did a few years ago. And basically this piece is a piece that shows PK and VB together. And it's, I didn't realize this when I was drawing it, but it's basically a redraw of the piece that started off Pumpkin Blood in the first place 2 years ago in 2022. Yeah, it's basically just PK holding, or no, it's VB holding PK's head a little tenderly and like them having a tender moment. And I actually posted this to Instagram with the song Die With a Smile by Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga. And I think it added a lot to the emotional aspect of this illustration. Yeah, this is definitely my favorite piece out of all of them. I feel like it's a very intimate moment between the two characters. I also think that I was going to end the Pumpkin Blood stuff with this one, but I added 2 more to the gallery of this project. But I think that this took the second longest amount of time, because I actually didn't draw this in my sketchbook or have like any preliminary planning for this, even though I pretty much just ended up redrawing a illustration from 2 years ago. But I keep saying this, but it's my favorite drawing out of all of them. I feel like this is also one of the ones that shows like the height difference and like the size difference between PK and VB, which I think makes this moment a bit more intimate, especially since VB is kind of like encasing PK isn't like encasing VB in his arms and like pulling him close to himself, and I think it's really cute. I've also taken into consideration like the lore aspect of like the way that PK's head is like glowing, and because VB is a vampire, it might hurt his eyes. So PK pretty much lowers the amount of light that his eyes and mouth emit when he's around VB, as a gesture of like love and care. But when he's upset, then the light will get brighter. That's pretty much what I have for now. And also, I forgot to mention this before, but the reason why PK has like the little fangs in his face is because when he got together with VB, he carved himself a new head and included the little fangs to like match his vampire boyfriend, which I think is kind of cute. Yeah, you can definitely see me going ham with all this shading. I really love how I shaded VB's like cloak, and like the way that I shaded PK's head. I just went really small with the sizing of the brush, and I think it makes it so much more intimate and like just, it looks so good. It's my favorite piece out of all of them. And yeah, I know that VB's hair doesn't quite make sense from the back, but I still like it very much. Yeah, I just do a bit more shading on VB's clothing, and that's pretty much the end of this one. I'm so happy with how this turned out. So we're going back to Abyss Paint X for the next one, and this one is basically just a midnight ride with PK and the skeleton horse. So this is kind of related to what I was talking about earlier with like redesigning the skeleton horse to make it have like the spirit skin and make it more comfortable to ride on. So I use the same technique of scanning it with the Abyss Paint X outline feature, extraction line feature, and I basically added the spirit skin to the skeleton horse. And the outline feature doesn't take into consideration lighting, so if you want to use it, you should probably get good lighting, otherwise it comes out faded like this. So I basically had to go back over some of the lines with the brush pen that I had in Abyss Paint X. And a lot of the details that I did were very small, so sorry if you can't see anything right now. Yeah. I also based this one off of a reference from Pinterest, like the posing. I'm not sure if I got it completely right with how the reins are being pulled, but you know, it is what it is. It's pretty good for like my first attempt at using at drawing a horse, especially like in motion. I definitely did a better job with the skeletal structure, I think, with this one, especially since I sketched it with pencil first in my sketchbook and then went over it with my ink pens, like traditionally. So I think it might be a bit more anatomically correct than that first skeleton horse painting illustration. And then of course I also added like the inky hair to it as well. I think that I need to somehow make the size difference between PK and the skeleton horse a bit more, but I think it looks pretty good for this attempt. So this is the last one, and this was done in Clip Studio Paint, and it's based off of a little sketch that I did. I think it was pretty much on Halloween. Unfortunately, I got sick on Halloween day, so I pretty much spent the whole day doing art and animating. But yeah, this is the final ink piece, ink illustration for Pumpkin Blood. So I actually scanned it using the same technique in Speedpaint X, and then Clip Studio has this feature where you can just transfer files from Speedpaint X into Clip Studio. So that's what I did with this one, and I just tried to do the line art. It's not the cleanest, but I still think that the overall illustration turned out pretty well. But yeah, I just wanted to draw PK and VB in like this tender moment, not really tender, but like a mundane moment, I guess, of just having like a tea break. And I just really had this idea of drawing like VB sitting on PK's lap, especially with like the size difference. I feel like it's kind of like I don't know. I just really wanted to draw this kind of scene, especially since PK isn't like one for propriety, I think is what the word is, like not one for like social norms, I guess. So he pretty much just allows VB to do whatever, and like anybody who goes against him will just end up in the scarecrow pumpkin field. So yeah, they just do whatever. And I feel like they would just like talk about mundane things, even though they're both kind of like, I don't want to say monsters, but they have a pretty healthy relationship, I think. And I wanted to kind of do a bit of designing with the throne that they're sitting on. So I made it so that like at the end of the armrests were these pumpkin heads, kind of like the theater, comedy, and tragedy masks, basically showing PK's power and his influence. Which I kind of wish I did a bit more designing with the throne, because I don't think that I even did like the back of his chair. But yeah, then I just go on to color the whole thing. I was a bit pressed for time because I think this was almost at midnight of Halloween. So yeah, it's definitely not as clean as I would like it to be. Especially like VB's face, I feel like it's not following the same design as the previous illustrations. I also just really hate how I colored the pumpkins at the end of the throne. But you know, it is what it is, especially for the time crunch that I was like on for this day. So for these next two, I had actually posted speed paints of them on my YouTube channel before, so if you want to see the full process, you can go watch those videos. But I pretty much just included the time-lapse footage from Clip Studio Paint, showing the individual fully rendered illustrations that I did for VB and PK. And I actually did the one for VB at the beginning of October, and I did the one for PK at the end of October. And I was originally actually going to give these to you guys as desktop backgrounds, but I wasn't really happy with how the VB one was turning out. So it was already pretty much too late to put them up on my coffee shop for you guys. So that's all of the art that I did for the month of October for my story Pumpkin Blood. I had a lot of fun doing all of this illustration work, and I actually did a few animations too, so if you go to my Instagram you'll be able to see that as well. I'm really proud of all the work that I did, and I'm glad that I decided to give this a go. But yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you like this content, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and maybe following me on Instagram, and maybe joining the Discord. We would love to have you there. And I will see you all next time. Goodbye!